Hi everyone, I'm Steve Krause. I'm the professor for this class, which is Writing 225, Writing in the Disciplines. Welcome aboard. This is the winter 2021 version of it. And what I'm going to do in this short video is just kind of walk you through some of the highlights of the syllabus, point out how the class website on Canvas is set up, and try to preempt some questions that you might have. Of course, if you have any questions at all about the syllabus or the assignments or anything like that, just ask them in the space below. So take a look at this first, and then come back and ask questions. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is the class website. This is what you should be seeing when you log into Canvas. I'll come back to this part later. This is the important part because this is where all the information for the class is located. This is the home page, and this will tell you everything we're going to do throughout the semester. But let me start with the syllabus here first. We have your basic contact information. I'm not really in my office, and I'm not really using my office phone. The best way to get a hold of me is via email. And as far as office hours go, I'm going to have them on Tuesdays from 1 to 5 p.m., but I'll be totally honest with you. It's really easy to kind of forget that I have office hours because I'm just at home. So really the best way to get a hold of me for something is to set an appointment. Send me an email, let me know when we can get together. This is a description of the class. The idea of Writing in the Disciplines, Writing 225, is it's supposed to be a bridge class between first year writing, the class like Writing 121, or maybe you tested out at 121 or took a different class someplace else, and your writing intensive class in your major. Now, some of you might be seniors that are taking this after that or whatever. It doesn't really matter, but the idea is it's supposed to be a class where we learn a little bit more about what it means to write for a particular discipline, about how discourse communities function differently, about reading more deeply and things like that. You'll see what I mean when we get to it. Text and readings. There's no textbook assigned or anything like that. Everything is going to be available via PDFs. There are a couple of things I want to mention about that, though, is that you need to have some kind of way to take notes. Don't just read something off the screen. The reading's important. You have to be able to understand what the reading's about, and you're going to be quoting the reading in your essays, so you need to kind of have a mastery of it. So that means you actually need to do the reading. My suggestion is that you print the readings out on paper and take notes on the old-fashioned way, especially if you don't have another option. If you don't want to do that, you could use something like a separate Microsoft Word or Google Doc file to take some notes on the sort of readings where, you can copy and paste some things in there, jot down some things in a separate document. I have a software on my iPad called iAnnotate, which allows me to actually take notes on a PDF as if the PDF was paper, highlight parts and write things in the margins and stuff like that. And I find that very, very useful. But one way or the other, you need some kind of system like that for taking notes. Okay, let's talk a little bit about online attendance and the online format. First off, and I think that most people are aware of this now, this is not a self-paced and a self-study class. Just because the class is online and just because we don't meet at a specific class time doesn't mean there aren't deadlines for things and when you need to do things. And the thing about writing is it's a very social activity. All the stuff they're going to be doing this semester really depends on you interacting with other people in the class. So the first thing in terms of attendance is that at a minimum, you need to demonstrate presence in the class by posting to the discussions at least twice a week, generally between Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays. Now, if you don't, just posting minimally will get you essentially a C for participation. So you're going to want to do more than that. But if you are gone, if you don't post at all in a given period, I'll count you absent the same way I would count you absent in a face-to-face class. And if you miss too many of our online meetings, then I will dock enough points from your participation grade that you won't be able to pass. Now, look, I'll be honest, this is not something that usually comes into play. Most people have been pretty good about participating in this. But if, for example, you decided that you just wanted to not do school for the month of February, that's going to be a problem. So you got to make sure that you're present, just like you would be in a normal face-to-face class. Some things about the online format that are really important is we're going to be using our Google account, EMU Google account, very extensively. So if you haven't really made much use of that so far, or Google Docs and things like that, you'll certainly be doing that this semester. I got to emphasize these next 2 points a little bit. You need to check your EMU email account every single weekday, every single day. Okay. And if you don't check your email account and I send you an email message about some sort of issue and it becomes a problem, I will under no circumstances accept any excuse for a problem of not checking your email. Okay? It's really, really important that you do this. I don't know exactly what's happened, but I will say that in the last 2 semesters, both winter 2020 and in fall 2021, I had several students who were very close to failing the class because they simply didn't respond to an email. And I even had some of these students tell me, it's like, I don't really read email. You have to read your email, okay? Texting is not the solution for everything. Texting is not enough. You've got to read and respond to your EMU email. Okay, that's just a sort of professional and adulting kind of thing to do. Okay, enough of that. Let me move on. Small issue, but an issue nonetheless, is you actually have to have a computer. This isn't the kind of thing that you can just complete the class with either a cell phone or a tablet device or something like that. I mean, you can do that sort of thing once in a while, and I do have students who use their cell phone for Zoom conferences all the time, but you really do need to have an actual computer to do stuff like the word processing and things. Now, the class is basically divided up grade-wise into 2 parts. One's participation, that's worth 300 points, and most of that is about these online discussions. You'll get the hang of it as we go along, but I just want to highlight a couple of important things here. The first thing is that you actually have to do the reading. If you don't do the reading, then you don't really have anything to discuss and you don't really have anything to write about for the assignments. So again, you got to do the reading. Other things to keep in mind, generally speaking, these discussions are linked to the homepage, and generally speaking, they begin on Mondays and Wednesdays. Begin is the key phrase. We start on a discussion on Monday, we conclude it on Wednesday, we start a discussion on Wednesday, and we conclude it on Friday. You have to post your initial reactions to the readings or whatever the assignment is before you'll be able to see what other people have to say. So in other words, think of this as just sort of like the initial response to the readings, and once you see that, then you'll see what other people have said. Okay, think of these posts as being discussions, not little mini book reports, and not particularly long. The idea is to have a conversation with other students in the class. So your first post might be, I thought this reading was interesting because of this, and you highlight some sort of reason. And then when you go back, you can see what other people said, and you have a chance to respond to agree with them or disagree with them or add to their posts and things like that. Okay. So the discussions start either on Mondays or Wednesdays, and the goal is to return to the discussion, to read and respond to what your peers said, and to engage with them in the discussion. Again, this is supposed to be replacing the face-to-face discussion we might have in a small group. So, you begin sometime on Monday, then you come back later in that day or the next day or the Wednesday, and you respond to your peers and read what they have to say. Do not post several times just a few minutes apart. This is a process I refer to as post and go, which is to say someone logs into the class, they post an initial response on Monday at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. These are all time-stamped, of course, in the system. They're posted at 3 p.m., and then they respond to a couple of peers at 3:02 p.m. and 3:03 p.m., and then, as far as I can tell, they never return to the discussion again. Well, look, that's not the idea. The idea is that you want to come back to it, take the time to read what other people had to say, take the time to let the discussion develop, and so forth. Okay, posting several times right in a row is just going to end up giving you a C for participation because these discussion posts need to be at least 12 hours apart. Okay, we'll see that in a second. They don't have to be long posts. Anything more than 150 words is probably too long, but they don't want to be just like I agree or you're correct or something like that. They don't have to be perfectly written, but they should be, generally grammatically okay, spell check, stuff like that. The most important thing is this, and that is the timely fashion. Okay, your initial post is due by the end of the day on either Monday or Wednesday, and then you have until the Wednesday or Friday to follow up. But if you wait until the end of the discussion, you're not going to do well in terms of the grade. Okay. How this works for discussion is if your initial post is on time and you respond to more than one of your classmates and respond to more than one of your classmates, which is to say at least two, but at least 12 hours apart. Okay. And second, that's an A. So like this would be you post on Monday, and then you post again, you respond again to somebody Monday night, 12 hours later, and then you respond to two other people on Tuesday, again, more than 12 hours later. That's an A. Okay. Your initial B is your initial post is late, but you respond to multiple peers, or your initial post is on time, but you only respond to one peer. Okay, and not necessarily 12 hours apart. C is your initial post is late, but you respond to one peer at least 12 hours later, or your initial post is on time and you don't respond to any of your peers. D is initial post is late, and F is you don't respond at all. I'll mention a couple of things about the discussions. The first thing is the reason I'm such a stickler for the begin on Monday and go until Wednesday, and begin on Wednesday and go until Friday, instead of talking about a deadline, as in like you have until Wednesday or you have until Friday, is because if we thought about it like that, then everybody would wait until the deadline. And that would be kind of like if we were having a face-to-face class or a synchronous Zoom class, and we all logged in or we all showed up in the classroom at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then we just sat there silently for an hour. And then the last 15 minutes of the class, everybody starts talking all the time and stuff like that. Well, you can't really have a discussion like that, right? So like the idea is to let the discussion start and play out over a few days, and then you can like actually have a discussion. You can actually hear what other people have to hear, read what other people have to say, respond to them, and things like that. That's thing number one. Thing number two is do use the time like that. And I've had a lot of students who tell me that they really like this format because it allows them to, think for a second and then put down their thought and then go away and then come back after they've thought a little bit more and read what other people had to say. And you know what I'm saying? So in other words, I really do believe that this format can help people engage with each other in a way that's actually a lot more useful than us all talking at the same time or in a smaller set, in a more confined period of time. And the last thing I'll mention about this is participation is one of those things that can be kind of a make or break deal in terms of how you do in the class overall. I'll talk about this later with grading, but it's very difficult to get an A in the class if you don't get at least one A on one of the major writing projects. However, it's pretty much impossible to get an A in the class if you do poorly on participation and just get A's on the writing projects. So it can really make a big difference. And the way that it turns out in terms of the way the grades average out and everything like that is you can, missing participation, missing discussions, you can miss like one or two in a semester and be okay. But you start missing a lot of them, and it really is going to change that grade to a lot lower than it could be. Conversely, if you're diligent about it, you get up and you post on every Monday and every Wednesday, and you are engaged in it, it's a really easy way to boost your grade as well. Okay. One last thing about participation, the way I figure it out is I assign letter grades for each discussion, and then what I do is in the middle of the term and at the end of the term, I convert those letter grades into numbers, come up with an average, and then come up with a score. It's a cumbersome way to do it, but it's just kind of the way that I do it because of the way the Canvas system works. But you'll get a midterm grade from me on participation right before our fake winter break, our faux winter break. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and also at the end of the term. Okay, back to the syllabus. We'll also be doing a lot of peer review this semester. My guess is that you've done some peer review in other writing classes before. This is where we exchange with each other. Well, you exchange with each other drafts of your essays. You make comments on them. I give you some guidance as to how to do that. And then that feedback will help you think about revisions to your projects. It's very important for peer review to work that everyone participate on time. So you got to make sure that you hand in your rough drafts on time, and you make sure you respond to your peers on time. And if you don't do that, you're going to lose some grade. I deduct a half letter grade for when you're late on peer review and you're late on responding. We're also going to have a couple of individual conferences this semester. I'll be meeting with each of you at least twice via Zoom, one time kind of towards the next week or 2 weeks, I think. and then one time towards the middle of the semester. If you want to revise one of your final projects, we'll also meet again. These meetings are short, 15 to 20 minutes. They'll be via Zoom. They are required, they are not optional, and you will need to schedule an appointment with me that if you miss, I will potentially lower your participation grade. Okay. Now, the bulk of the class, since it's a writing class, is made up of 3 major writing projects. Okay. The first 2 are an essay and examination about your major, dependent your major or your as a discourse community. That will start very, very soon. We'll start talking about the assignment itself next week. Second assignment is an essay and examination of your field's major writing practices in terms of scholarship and writing in the profession. You'll see what I mean by that when we take what I refer to as diving deeper into a bit of research. And the last one is a sort of interesting kind of experimental assignment called a WorkNet, in which you will dive even more deeply into one of the articles that you selected and worked on for your second assignment. Okay. Everything we're going to be working on in terms of writing projects this semester is going to involve Google Docs. I like Google Docs for a bunch of different reasons we'll get to pretty soon. Quite frankly, I haven't used personally Microsoft Word to write anything on my computer for a few years now. Google Docs works great. I don't accept late writing projects, though at least without not some sort of deduction to the grade. The one exception to this is if you tell me something is likely to be due before it's due, I will often give you an extension. Okay, so like if something is due on Wednesday and you like email me Wednesday morning and say, can I get an extension on that, it's too late. But on the other hand, if something's due on Wednesday and you tell me Monday or Tuesday before that something's come up and it's going to take you a little while to get it done, then I'll usually make a deal with you. Okay. Here's about revision. We'll come back to this later on in terms of this later in the semester. The short version is that you can revise all 3 of the major writing projects to improve your grade if you want to. Okay. This is something I always put in there. In order to pass the course, you must complete all the major writing projects regardless of your grade for any of the components of the course and regardless of your grade with missing components. So in other words, if you decided, I don't want to do the second essay project, I'm just going to skip it, and then you think that you're going to be able to get a C out of the class or something like that, then the answer is no, you'd end up failing. This is how grades work. These is how these ranges works like this. Let me say a couple quick things about grades generally. The thing that's important about grades is that grades are important for you because they are what you earn, but it's not like I give them exactly. It's I feel more like I do the best I can to evaluate your work and assign you the grade based on what you did, if that makes sense. I think this is the kind of class where if you do everything you're supposed to do, you're going to get at least a C. And most people do more than that and end up with some kind of B. But it's still kind of hard to get an A. You still have to really do excellent work because that's what I think that an A means. You can do that with revisions and things like that. And I'm perfectly happy to talk with you about what kind of grade that you want to get in the class and things like that. But again, it's one of those things where it's really more in your hands than it is in mine. And the other thing is that don't think about it too much because, as I am fond to say to people, 5 years from now, you're not going to remember what grade you got in this class, and no one else will remember it either. Okay. All right, let me go on a couple of other things. This first is this part here about a few thoughts on the current moment. And I'm thinking, of course, of the fact that we are in the midst of a global pandemic. It's been a rough year for everybody. It's been a weird year for most of us. And I want to do the best that I can with a class like this to help each other support each other. Okay. And so that doesn't mean that you can just not do stuff and be okay in the class, but it does mean that I'm a lot more willing to sort of talk about the kinds of extra things that have nothing to do with school that have interfered with what has happened in the class. So if you end up feeling like you're too stressed out or too busy or other hardship in your life is making it difficult to get things done in the class, please let me know because I can probably help you solve this problem, at least as far as the class goes. The other thing is that there's a whole host of resources available at places like EMU for food support, for financial support in emergencies, for emotional and mental health support. So please do take advantage of those kinds of services. They're really there to help you and to help us all get through this together. So okay. Then I have some fine print details here. Don't plagiarize. And here are links to some of the many campus resources I was just talking about that are designed to help you. Okay. All right. Let's go back to the home page, and let me wrap this up by explaining how this works. Now, one advantage that you all have this semester is that this is the third time I've taught this class in a row, so I have a pretty solid schedule set up that this is probably pretty close to what we're going to do. And the way that it works is like this. This is week 1, so the first thing you clicked was this, begin by visiting this discussion for the syllabus, and that's where the video is and stuff like that. The next one is this discussion where you introduce yourself to me and your peers. And so what you'll do is read through this, and then you'll write your response here about, tell us a little bit about yourself. And then I'm not going to do this, but once you post a reply, you'll see other replies. And you'll notice there is one reply already that would be from me. And that's how it will progress as the schedule goes. So we're not going to do anything on January 18th because that's Martin Luther King Day. But then on the 19th, we're going to continue this required discussion. This is going to be graded. You have to do that. And we're going to continue on this required discussion, which is about the first research project or first assignment, the Disciplinary Discourse Communities Project, along with its little discussion about Kenneth Burke. And I don't think if I click on this now, no, it's not available yet because the course, when I'm recording this video, has not been made available yet. But then we'll read through these discussions. So like, for example, on January 20th, we'll read and discuss John Swale's Concepts of Discourse Community. This is kind of a complicated essay, but it's an important way to start off. Here's a link to that essay, so if you wanted to download it and get started reading it earlier, you could. Same with this one here. And then these two are required discussions, and then this is a not required discussion about Google Docs, okay? But here's the point. Everything is on this page right here. Don't pay any attention to any of this over here at all. This to-do list, don't pay any attention to that at all, okay? And you'll also notice that I don't have the discussions or the assignments linked over here because I want you to interact with the class just here. Because that way we're all literally on the same page in terms of how the course is going to progress. Okay. Anyways, this is the way the schedule goes. Like I said, it's pretty spelled out. The first project is due on February 15th, but there's a couple dates before that you're going to want to keep in mind. First is we're going to start doing conferences at the end of the month. So around here or so, we'll do conferences on January 27th through about February 1st or so. The first peer review for the first project begins on February 3rd, which means that you're going to need to have a draft of that essay that's due on the 15th by this date. Then we're going to do the peer review. There's some exercises in here. We'll talk about revision stuff, and then you'll hand this in on February 15th. Then we'll get into the next project, which is called Diving Deeper into Your Discourse Community. You'll see what I mean. One thing I did here that I want to point out is what I refer to as faux break. EMU canceled its winter break, although then they added these personal wellness days, which in my view kind of defeats the purpose of canceling the break in the first place, but whatever. Anyways, I just decided to go ahead and take that whole week off because I think we all deserve to still have some version of a winter break. So week 8, we're not going to have any work. And then we pick up again on March 8th, continues onward. The second major project is due on March 22nd. Then we start getting into the last major project, which is the WorkNets project. That's not due until the very end of the term. And then the last day of classes, we kind of wrap things up. And then any remaining coursework, revisions, and everything else are due at 5 p.m., not midnight, but 5 p.m. on April 27th. Okay, that's a lot. Hopefully you made it all the way through that. By far, this is the longest video you're going to hear from me. And if you kind of skipped around a little bit, that's fine. I just want to lay all that stuff out there in the first day so that, so we all know we're on the same page with things, okay? Obviously, if you have any questions about what I just said, or you didn't understand something, or I didn't address something, or whatever, ask those questions in the discussion down below here. Then after you do that, go over to the other discussion where you're supposed to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about something about yourself. Maybe post a picture. Maybe alter your Canvas settings so that we can actually see your picture when you post in discussions and things like that. And yeah, just try to meet each other a little bit. I think that's all I got for now. Welcome aboard, and we'll have an interesting term. Okay, see you later. Bye bye.